Wonderful.
Okay, so Lisa, yeah, right.
Have we had an introduction? That's my question. Would you like me to start now?
Yes, yes, we already had an introduction. Yeah.
Fantastic. I'm so sorry, everyone. I couldn't hear you in the room, so I'm standing here like a stunned animal in the headlights, but it's wonderful to be here. Thank you so much for having me and welcoming me to your wonderful conference for Ladies Who Tech. So it's great to see you all energized. I could see you doing exercises and I hope that you're having a good afternoon. My name's Lisa Harvey-Smith. I'm a professor from the University of New South Wales in Sydney, Australia. And I wanted to talk to you today about my two jobs. So one is being an astronomer, so studying the stars, the galaxies, and the universe. And the other one is to really understand and help to drive forward gender equality in STEM, in science, technology, engineering, and maths in Australia. So those are my two jobs, and I want to talk about both. So why am I showing you this picture? This is actually me when I was 16 years old. And I'm not from Australia originally. Those of you who are good at accents will know that I'm from England. I was born in England in the southeast of the country. And you can see the wonderful night sky that I enjoyed when I was a child. So I guess fell in love with astronomy when I was a child. And I was very lucky because we had dark skies, not too dark, but pretty good. And I wasn't in a big city, which really helped. And when I was 16, this amazing comet came to visit the Earth. This is a huge snowball, like a big rock of ice and dust. And it comes near the sun and the sunlight heats it up. And we get this huge kind of tail coming off the comet. So we got this comet in 1996. It was called Hyakutake. It was discovered by a Japanese amateur astronomer. And this is me pointing up to the sky, had to hold very still for about 30 seconds. And I took this photo of myself, age 16. And it just reminds me of the magic of showing children the night sky, because it gets us excited about nature and about science and about learning more. And that's what I love about astronomy. And that's how I fell in love with astronomy. So I became an astronomer. I read so many books. I went to space school, which was for 16 to 18-year-olds. It was like a summer camp for nerds, people who loved learning more about space. And I did my degree in astronomy and astrophysics, a PhD in radio astronomy, both in England. And I started doing radio astronomy, which was, I guess it's looking at the invisible universe. It's looking with radio telescopes like this big one on the right-hand side in Germany. This is the 100-meter telescope near Bonn in Germany. And using telescopes like this to gather long wavelength information from stars and galaxies. So we use telescopes, we gather information, we make pictures, we use technology like supercomputers to image process and make incredible pictures of things that are invisible to our eyes. I started studying things in our galaxy, things in the local region of our universe. And these things were like this on the left-hand side, this amazing, amazing cloud in space. And the cloud is called an interstellar cloud. It's between the stars. And it's made of gases like hydrogen, helium, carbon dioxide, water is in there, alcohol is in there, and also dust. So the darkness you can see is dust. And this is long carbon chain molecules. And inside the dust, at the ends of these fingers, are new stars being born. So I study these new stars, and at the ends, deep inside this dust, we can look through the dust using radio waves. So we receive the radio waves from the stars, and we can see inside this invisible region of our galaxy. So it's pretty amazing, really, to use this huge telescope and see invisible things. And I found that magical, and I still do. After a bit of work in my PhD in England, I moved first to the Netherlands. I worked in Holland, Germany as well, in Europe, and then moved to Australia about 15 years ago. And I moved to Australia because they have amazing telescopes here. We've got some of the best telescopes in the world for a small country. It's a big country, but not many people. And I started studying, this was me about 15 years ago, the big telescope outside of Sydney. I started studying some things like this. And when I do talks for children, I often ask them to guess what this is, this ring of gas. So I want you to try and think what you think it is. Some people say it's a black hole. Some people say, I don't know, a ghost. It's actually a supernova remnant. So the shell of a star that's died and exploded and is expanding into space. So this star exploded over 1,000 years ago in the year 1006. And Chinese astronomers were always the best at recording these events. So we have ancient records from China of the bright star in the sky, exactly in this place, 1,000 years ago. And now when we zoom in with our telescopes, we can see the tiny, tiny remnants of this circle of exploded gas that used to be a star. So we can actually date the star. We know when it exploded because of the records. And we know how fast the gas is moving because we can measure its velocity, its expansion. And we can look at the colors of the gas, and we can measure the chemistry. We can see what the star exploded into. We can measure the magnetic field of the gas. So we can measure all sorts of science, all sorts of physics and chemistry, and learn more about the explosion of stars at the end of their lives. But this is always a fascinating subject as well. So I started with how stars are born and the beginning of their life, and I ended with how they die, which was amazing. It's a story of their lives. After a couple of years in Australia, I got an amazing new job that I didn't expect to get. And I was really proud because across the world, astronomers are getting together to build a gigantic radio telescope made up of thousands of smaller telescopes. And it's going to be across 2 different countries, Africa, South Africa, and Australia. And I got a job as the project scientist on this amazing telescope in Australia. So it was incredible. It was exciting. We got to actually build new telescopes. We got to work with people from engineering backgrounds, on supercomputers, on cooling systems and solar panels to power the telescope. It was really, really interesting and really exciting to not just use telescopes, but to actually build them. So I was the project scientist, and behind me, you can see the Australian Square Kilometre Array Pathfinder telescope. Now, the Square Kilometre Array is the SKA, and China is a major partner in the SKA telescope. So it's still being built. It's going to be a huge, huge project. And these new telescopes are really, really clever. A normal telescope has a dish, and the radio waves come from space and they bounce off the dish into the middle. And there's a radio receiver. It's kind of like the aerial on your TV at home or the aerial on your car for your radio. It's just a piece of like wire metal, essentially. But the lab that I was working in the engineers in the lab invented this amazing new phased array camera, this green thing here. and it looks like a checkerboard or a chessboard. And it can actually receive over 180 different signals from the sky all at once. So it gives us a wide area view of the sky. So instead of looking at one tiny piece of the universe like this through your telescope, you're opening up the whole sky. So it's a really clever camera for radio telescopes. Now this created a challenge because we'd never used one of these before. And it creates a data challenge because instead of one signal that we measure in the radio camera, we normally measure the voltage that's created in that camera, and we convert that through a computer into an image. Instead, we had almost 200 images or 200 signals that we combined together. So there's a lot of calculations. This computing system had 72 terabits per second of data, 72 trillion bits every second. And that was sort of crunched down quite quickly into a more manageable data stream. But it's very data intensive. So the signals would come through the telescopes, 36 different telescopes, into this central computing center in the middle of the desert, not close to any electricity supply or any towns or cities. So all of the electricity supply had to be built, everything. And then the data would go down to a computer about 600 to 800 kilometers away in the nearest city. So it was a huge data intensive project. But now, a few years later, after opening the telescope, this is the kind of image that we can get. I didn't make this image, but it comes from other astronomers working on the project. And it's an incredible image of another supernova remnant, so a star that exploded long ago. And now in the background, you can see more details. You can see these long objects like this one on the right-hand side. And this is a distant galaxy. So we're not just seeing the things in the foreground close to us, like a supernova, but we're seeing huge details. We're seeing millions of these galaxies in the distance, and they have huge black holes at their centers. So they're teaching us about the history of the universe as we look back in time. Now, in just a few years, this global telescope, the Square Kilometre Array, or SKA, will be completed. They're just starting to build very soon. And as I said, China is a major collaborator in this project. So the telescopes in Australia will be these metal towers like this. It doesn't really look like the dish that I described earlier, but it's the same idea. The radio waves come from space. The metal pieces are aerials, just like TV, radio aerials. And then there is a huge computer processing power to actually gather more than 140,000 separate signals from across the desert. So it's going to be a huge technology challenge and very exciting for the next few tens of years. And hopefully this telescope will help us to see right back to almost the Big Bang, to the very first stars and galaxies that existed about 13.7 billion years ago. So alongside the exciting space telescopes that we have, this Earthbound radio telescope is really cool. Now, in my career, apart from just doing astronomy and building telescopes, I started to enjoy the creative side of my career as well. So on the left-hand side, this is me with somebody quite special. I don't know if you would recognize him now, but from old pictures, you certainly would. He was the guy standing on the moon in 1969 doing this, Buzz Aldrin, the second man to walk on the moon. And as you know, we're going back to the moon very soon. So it's a really exciting time to think about these people and the history that they have. And I've been on a tour with him and other astronauts who've been to the moon around Australia to show all the young people what can be achieved if we work towards science and technology. And this is just one of the young people that was very excited that day when myself and Buzz Aldrin went around Australia. And we sold out theatres all over the place, in Sydney and Melbourne and Perth, all over the country. And we did that 3 times with different shows. And then I created my own show as well about galaxies and toured across the country. So I love public speaking. I love doing live shows and events. And I've also written almost 6 books now. One's about to be launched, as well as including this one, Under the Stars, which is translated for young readers of Chinese, simplified Chinese. So it's very cool for me to get my left brain working for the technical stuff and my creative side working together. And I think that's important for a long career, to do something different. Now, my other role, apart from the research, the telescopes, the writing and speaking, is gender equality in STEM. And I know that's what this conference is about, helping to uplift women in science, technology, engineering, and maths. So I was appointed 4 years ago by the Australian government to be Australia's Women in STEM ambassador. So what do? I give advice to the government on what they should do, programs or changing the law, or various different ways of encouraging businesses and organizations to do better. I help support women scientists in the media, help women rise up to be spokespeople for science. And I work with the funding agencies to make sure that we're making decisions about science research funding fairly. We're creating ways to figure out what works, which programs are working well. So we're creating a place where people can evaluate their work in STEM and see whether their gender equity programs are working. And we're doing research, things like how can research funding be fairer to everyone so that there isn't that bias against women. We're also doing an exciting new educational program for young people. And this is for children aged 8 to 12 years old. And it's called Future You. So we have role models, we have films of women working in STEM in Australia. And we show young people that they're real people. They're not some mad scientist or some stereotype, but they're people just like them, and that they can do science and technology, and they can have a life outside of that, and they can achieve great things. So we're launching this very soon, and we have a program inside schools so that teachers and parents can learn about STEM careers as well. Australia also works very carefully with the research organisations like universities and other research places to increase gender equality inside the workplace. So things like giving parents equal parental leave when somebody has a baby or adopts a child or fosters a child, making sure that if there's 2 parents, they can both take leave and both look after the child. There are other things like preventing sexual harassment or bullying in workplaces, and making sure that women are being given fair wages and reducing that gender pay gap that we talk about between men and women, and lots of other aspects that in workplaces tend to be unfair, like recruitment and promotion. So this program has more than 40 organizations participating, and they have to look at their own processes and practices inside the organization and make them fairer for everyone. And then they can achieve bronze, silver, or gold awards. So it's a really good program to improve gender equity. Australia also has the Workplace Gender Equality Agency. And their job is to gather information from all the big workplaces. Any workplace above 100 people, they have to collect data on gender equality. They have to measure the gender pay gap, how much women are paid versus men. They have to look at their parental leave policies. They have to look at a number of different things about women in senior leadership roles. And they gather the data, and then we try to improve these statistics in different ways. There are programs, of course, to try to help women get into STEM, but also build areas where women are very underrepresented. In Australia, only 27% of STEM workers are women. Although women do a lot of science degrees, they don't do technology, computing degrees, software, engineering, very low numbers, very, very low. So we have this Elevate program where women can apply and get scholarships to go to university to do these subjects, and also to do business degrees, because women get very little money for running businesses and being entrepreneurs. We also have other websites for children. So this is for high school students aged 12 to 16. And this shows the Girls in STEM toolkit. It shows girls and their parents and their teachers how STEM careers are really great options for girls, and how girls belong in STEM. So we've got our primary school program, and this is a high school program. And there are many other programs across the country, and we're trying to really understand how those are working well. So lastly, how we're trying to figure out what works. Well, my office has created an evaluation guide. So people, if they're doing a program for women in STEM, they can go to our website and they can define what they're trying to achieve, plan their program, design it well, and then evaluate afterwards. Has it worked well? Not just how many people attended, but what were the outcomes? What really happened afterwards? Did it make a difference? So we're trying to make this a really strong part of Australian gender equity programs, so that we're not just spending money on things and hoping that they work, but we're actually making sure that they do. So it's been great talking to you. I'd love to interact with you. It's such a shame that we have travel restrictions right now, but I hope you have a wonderful rest of conference, and I hope at least maybe we can do a couple of questions. If not, you can visit my website or the Women in STEM website for Australia. And thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Lisa. Can you hear me? And can you see us? Now can you see us?
I can see you.
Yes, and also everyone here. Can you see everyone here? Hello. All right, yes, I know there are a few questions that already, okay, we have some. Eli actually raised his hands up. So, good. So, do you want to ask a question?
Hi, Lisa. First off, what a cool job you have. It's so cool. But I want to say, like, because you focus both, we're talking about your career where you're focusing on STEM, doing the science, doing the research, but then you have this also pouring back and giving back. We're targeting for children and young adults. So knowing what you know now, where you are now, and where we are in the world now, and we're moving from, I think for us, at least my company, we're moving more from equality to equity. So putting some of those practices in, like parental leave is no longer maternity, paternity, it's just parental leave. Everyone gets 6 weeks full paid, no matter how the child come into you, no matter what your family looks like. But from that alone, what would you say to your younger self when you first started your career, or what would you say to someone today who's just getting their career started in something that is exciting, but they may say, I don't see anyone like that?
Yeah, it can be tough, when you're in a room and you look different from everyone else, right? We all know that. And I think as women in tech, you'll often, not now maybe, but often be in a room where you're one of very few women. And that can be tough. But we look back in history and things change very slowly, and there have to be pioneers. There have to be people who make that difference and break through. If you can break through, then we always say, don't pull the ladder up behind you, like leave the ladder there and help others behind you. And that's why I think I was passionate about this job, because I wanted to help others up, to mentor others, but also to break the systems that are doing the wrong thing, right? As you say, that the improvements in things like parental leave can help everyone achieve what they want to achieve in the workplace and achieve what they want to at home with their children if they choose to have them. So, you know, that is the drive towards equity means not treating everyone the same, but making those accommodations and changes so that everyone has choices. And that goes for men too. They have the choice to be a father and not just flog themselves at work, and that women have a choice to do whatever they want. So it's about that understanding the difference, I guess, between equality, where everyone's treated the same, but we don't have the same outcomes, and equity, where everyone has the same opportunities to succeed because there are not barriers in their way. So I don't know if that quite answered your question, but yeah, it's I think, you know, advice to younger self is always difficult. But hey, you make it in the end. We're all in this room, so I think we all made it.
Absolutely. Thank you, Professor Harvey. I think Curtis put his thumbs up. Thank you. So really looking forward to meet you in person, but thank you so much for sharing. And I think everyone, can you give another round of applause to please? Thank you, Lisa. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.